Summer in Tucson is like stepping into a furnace. The sun hangs overhead, an unforgiving orb that makes the asphalt shimmer and the air itself pulse with heat. On this particular afternoon, the mercury had soared well above 100 degrees F, the kind of swelter that turns breath into a labour and makes every shadow a precious refuge. Rick, a sturdy 42-year-old with calloused palms from years of hands-on work, strolled through a neglected lot on the edge of town. Max, his golden brown Labrador, padding faithfully by his side. The lot was a tangle of weeds and broken concrete, wooden crates stacked haphazardly as if abandoned in a hurry. The only sound was Max's steady panting until Rick heard something else. A faint, sorrowful whine, like the echo of someone's heartache. Ooh! What was hidden beneath those crates would change more than one life, and none of them would be the same again. Rick's curiosity propelled him forward. He parted the swaying weeds and edged closer to the crates, the whine growing more urgent. Folks. Then he saw it, a middle-aged yellow Labrador, its coat caked with dust, tethered by the neck to a splintered wooden post with a frayed nylon cord. The dog's bowl lay dry and cracked at its feet, baking in the sun, a silent testament to days without water. But the most piercing detail was the Labrador's eyes, wide, pleading, devoid of anger or fear, filled only with desperate hope. And clenched between its teeth was a piece of paper, soggy at the edges, torn but still held tight as if it were the dog's only lifeline. Rick crouched, his own hands trembling, and Max nudged his leg as if urging him to act. With infinite care, Rick eased the paper from the dog's mouth. His fingers brushed damp pencil marks as he unfolded it. The handwriting was rough, jagged, unmistakably childlike. If someone finds this dog, please help my dad. I do not know who else to ask. Ellie beneath the plea was an address Rick recognized. An old, run-down house no more than half a mile away, its paint peeling, windows dark and shuttered. In that moment, Rick felt his pulse spike. The sweltering heat pressed against his chest, but adrenaline made his feet light. Without hesitation, he dialed animal rescue. But as he spoke, he was already sprinting towards the house, painted in his mind. Rick's heart pounded like a drum in his ears as he barreled down the cracked sidewalk. Each step sent dust swirling around him, the sun baking his skin, but he hardly noticed. He reached the dilapidated house, its lawn choked with weeds and tumbleweeds of dead grass. The blinds were drawn tight, no sign of life stirred inside. Rick knocked on the warped wooden door with all his strength. He called out, voice cracking, hello, David, Ellie, David, Ellie. Only silence answered. He fumbled for his phone, barked into it. A 911, please. There's an unconscious man at 1423 Sunridge Drive. Within moments, lights flared behind him as a fire engine. An ambulance roared up. Paramedics jumped out, tools in hand. Rick pointed mutely at the door. Rescue workers pried it open with practiced ease, the entrance giving the faint creak of final surrender. Inside, paramedics discovered David lying motionless on the wooden floor. The stench of sweat and dust clung to the air. A wheelchair lay toppled over nearby, its wheels still spinning slowly, as if time had paused at the exact moment he fell. Dried blood stained the wood around a scrape on his forehead, and a lone pen lay idly on the floor, a silent witness to the struggle. Paramedics set to work immediately, checking his pulse, easing a mask over his face to deliver oxygen, whispering reassurances. Rick watched, breathless, as they loaded David onto a stretcher and carried him out to the ambulance. As the doors closed, Rick rummaged for the note in his pocket and showed it to the nearest officer. This was with the dog. She called for help for her dad, Rick explained, voice tight. An officer nodded thoughtfully. We did get a call a few days ago. A child's voice, panicked, but no one checked after the line went dead. We thought it was a prank. Regret flickered in the officer's eyes. Rick shook his head, refusing to dwell on what might have been. There was more to do, Enjo. Rick led the rescue team back to the lot with Max padding alongside. The crates loomed again, silent sentinels in the dusty sunlight. Team members lifted boards, calling out as they searched. Each reopened gap in the crates revealed only dust and empty space, until a soft whimper drifted out from between two soggy boxes. The team froze. One rescuer parted the gap just enough to peer inside. There, cowering behind the warped wood, was Ellie, a small pale figure, clutching a threadbare pillow as if it were a fortress. Her eyes squeezed shut at the sudden light, her lips trembling. Rick knelt, his shadow folding around her like a protective cloak. In a voice barely louder than a whisper, Ellie confessed she'd been hiding for 3 days. Her father had collapsed, and she'd been too frightened to leave his side. With trembling hands, she'd written the note, pressed it into Max's mouth, and watched as he carried it away, determined to find someone who would listen. "I told him to wait," she said, voice cracking. Rick's note tightened at her bravery. 3 days in the desert heat, subsisting on nothing but hope and the faint promise that someone would come. Max hadn't faltered. He'd completed his mission. Back at the hospital, the sterile scent of antiseptic hung in the air, mingled with the soft hum of machines. Ellie sat on a small chair beside her father's bed, one hand clutching his as he slept, a thin blanket pulled up to his chin. The paramedic on duty introduced Rick, who knelt by the bed, Max's leash held loosely in his hand. "He saved your lives," Rick said gently, his voice catching. The heat and tension of the day seemed to dissolve in that moment. David awoke slowly, confusion in his eyes before recognition and relief washed over him. Tears filled his gaze as he looked at Max, who sat upright, tail wagging in a muted rhythm. "He told him he was too old to be useful," David whispered, voice thick. "I guess he proved me wrong." He reached out, stroking Max's fur. Ellie leaned over, hugging them both, their family whole, once more. A week later, Rick stood on his front porch as Max bounded down the path, his tail a joyful banner. Ellie and David, recovered and smiling, waved from the yard. Rick knelt to Max's level, brushing his hand through the dog's golden coat. "You don't need to carry notes anymore," Rick said warmly. "From now on, I'll be the one looking out for you." Max barked softly, as if in agreement, his eyes shining with gratitude. Ellie ran over, wrapping her arms around Max's neck. She laughed, a clear, bright sound that cut through the desert stillness. David joined them, embracing both girl and dog. The old house in Tucson had collapsed, but from its ruins had emerged something stronger. The unbreakable bond of a family and the loyalty of a dog whose heart was as vast as the Arizona sky. That night, as the sun dipped behind the cigarros and the sky turned bruised purple, Rick posted the story on Soulpaw Stories. He uploaded the photo of Ellie hugging Max, his note clenched in her small hand, and wrote, "In the hottest part of the desert, hope came on 4 paws, folks." Max carried his message of love and saved 2 lives. Let his tale remind us that courage and loyalty can bloom in the driest places. He hit publish, and as the clicks and comments began to pour in, Ellie's simple truth rang loud and clear. When all else fails, love finds a way, and sometimes it wears a wet, crumpled note in its teeth. Subscribe to Soulpaw Stories for more real-life tales of courage, loyalty, and second chances.